The great Manuel Palachuk joins this week to share his insights on tech debt, as well as break down news from Enable, Augment, and Acronis, plus a special guest interview with Techrug CEO Justin Reinmuth on risk management for channel pros. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 231, Abaft your Scuttlebutt. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 231. My name is Manuel Palachuk, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine show for folks like you, the VARs, the MSPs, the IT integrators, the system builders. We remembered you last week, and I'm going to remember you this week too. The IT consultants, the MSSPs, the cybersecurity experts. We actually have quite a few cybersecurity insurance kind of folks that follow the show and listen to us these days. All of those things are you. If you are any of those, you are in the right place. If you are a boat captain, well, it turns out you're also in the right place too, because we've got one of those joining us here in just a moment. But first, each and every week, joining me, man of the hour, executive editor, Rich Freeman. Welcome, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you very much, Matt.
It's great to see you. How are you this week, sir?
I am doing really, really great. You want a totally random fun fact? I was listening to a podcast this morning. The interview guest was Trevor Noah, the host of The Daily Show on TV. And it turns out that when he was growing up in South Africa, he used to make his own computers. Just like you, he would build his own computers. So Trevor Noah is an amateur system builder. Trevor, if you are listening or watching, you have found the right show.
Awesome. And we will have him on if you would like to come on and join and talk about his system building days, because I know Rich and I are working on a system builder specific episode, which would be kind of fun to talk about hardware. Rich may not know that, but we talked about it last week, and I'm going to hold him to it because I want a whole episode dedicated to hardware and system building, because that would be a lot of fun, I think.
I think it's a great idea, actually. Yeah. So do remind, because I had forgotten about that, but do remind me. We will do that.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. And Rich, I'm also excited because we are not alone, and we've got someone who has been on the show a lot over the course of the show's history, and but hasn't been on recently. He's been very busy, I know, but I am always excited when he's here and when he comes onto the show. I'm excited when he joins us because he is a longtime friend. We were just musing before the show started that I think we've known this. I've known the person now about a decade, which is pretty amazing. He himself, though, has over 30 years of business management and training experience in the computer and electronics industries. He's owned several successful businesses, managed several successful IT and MSP service companies, and coached and mentored many more around the world. He's also the author of the book, Getting to the Next Level, a blueprint for taking you and your business to the top. Please welcome longtime friend of ChannelPro Weekly, Manuel Palachuk. Welcome, Manuel.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You know what? We
nice
put
to
in
be
like a sound effect of an audience clapping when you're coming on, because everybody's excited that you're here. It's great to see you.
Well, not as excited as me.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say. First, we have probably a lot more listeners and viewers since the last time you joined us, so we're gonna give you an opportunity to talk about you here in a second. But for those who are watching, you really should watch this episode because there's a great visual treat. Manny, where are you?
So I'm sitting on my yacht in Madeira Beach. I have a 45-foot sailboat, and this is basically where I work from a couple days of the week now. So it's what I'm doing. Right?
Wow, just look at that view. That is an amazing view. For those who are listening, he's on a boat. You can see the kind of the top of the cabin a little bit, and just out behind him, it's just like water and pier and the beautiful blue sky.
More water and blue skies that way. But yeah.
But like this is, you would think that background is fake. Like people would put that as a fake background, but you are living that background right now.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, you know,
so cool.
That is it. Yeah.
Now, if I were to expose my background outside of this window, people would see some empty lots and construction and goats across the way.
Hobo walking by.
Right. So like my background is nowhere near as interesting as yours. And if you were to, Rich, if you were to turn your camera, what would people see?
Oh, if my camera? Well, they would not see what they're seeing behind Manny. I'm sitting here in Seattle, Manny, and it's like truly the picture that Matt and I are looking at right now. It's almost like an ad for the Florida Dream, especially for a guy sitting in Seattle where it's not raining, but it's a little bit overcast here, and so
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, hey,
stuff.
do this again in December and it'll look the same.
Yeah, that's even more depressing because if it's December and I point it out this way, you might see like 10 feet of snow.
Right.
So Manny, it's great to have you back with us. For those who may not have caught an episode or a little bit newer to the show, tell us a little bit more about you and some of your background.
So like you said, I got like 35 plus years in the IT and service delivery industries, between computer related industries and high tech industry, high tech electronics. For the last 10 years, this is my 10th year anniversary as a business coach. And I am an international business coach. I've had clients all over the world, and I've written several books, one with my brother. And again, the book you mentioned, Getting to the Next Level. I'm working on a new book called The Culture Imperative. And I've moved into keynote speaking, and my keynote is about the culture imperative for organizations. And so basically, I spent the last 10 years coaching, and now I'm going to start moving more into the keynote speaking, and I'll still be doing coaching and cultivating the getting to the next level methodology that I've developed. But that's what I've been up to and what I'm getting set to do.
I think the last time you were on, it was pretty recently after your book had been released. Tell us how did the book do? Did it do well? Did you get a good?
So actually, no. I think I've been on several times since the book released in 2017. Right.
Oh,
so now it's almost coming up on 5 years, and we're in the middle of redoing it for the second edition, and we're going to revising a few things. But I think the book did well. I mean, it sold. It's not a bestseller. We didn't market it through the normal channels. It was a self-published book, but we sold thousands of copies and gave away hundreds. And for what it's intended it's like my guidebook for how to run your business strategy. It did everything I needed it to do, but it's also, as I kind of alluded to, over the last 10 years, I've cultivated the getting to the next level into a methodology that I teach my clients, and we're actually going to create master classes around it. So I think it's done very well, and the second edition is going to be, even better, basically. Right?
Well, you usually hope that the second edition is better. Well, I cannot believe how long it's been since it's been out. It shows you how fast time flies.
Yeah,
for sure. And speaking of time flies, I know you have put an inordinate amount of time into that boat of yours.
Oh yeah.
I know if I get you started on your boat, you can talk a long time. So just what have you been doing with it recently? Because you just had a kind of a milestone moment not too long ago. So why don't we just talk about that? And then we'll point people back to a previous episode where they can learn a lot more about the boat.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if anybody wants to follow me on Facebook, you don't have to connect. You can just follow me and see what's going on. But about 2 years, just a little over 2 years, I've been working on it. And the most recent big thing was we put a new motor in. And even though it's a sailboat, you need the motor to get out away from the dock because there's no wind in here. And you need it to get back, and you need it to get you out of trouble if the wind dies and you're, something else. So putting a new motor in, and we took it out and tested it out. And it means that now we can actually go sailing, right? Or just putt around, because sunset for us is out of this little bay here and around the corner and under the bridge. 15 minutes, we can be sitting looking out on the Gulf Coast and watch the sunset. So that's
very
what's
cool
next.
stuff. And folks, I do encourage you to go seek out his social media on Facebook, because they've posted all kinds of pictures from the beginning of when they got this boat and started working on it, because they've done so many cool things. And it really is very, very interesting to see the evolution of how it's gone and see some of the pictures and some of the work they've done, because I don't know where he finds the time, but he has put a lot of time into this boat. I will just say that.
Yeah.
So Rich, I have something to note that Manny's got something he'd like to talk about. Tell us a little bit about this topic, because we've heard this expression used on the show actually pretty recently.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. So I invited Manny to come back on the show. He said, sure thing. And he said, I'd really like to talk about technical debt, because I'm thinking about that now. And it was perfect from my end, because I'm hearing that term. Like a year ago, I never heard anyone throwing that term around. And now I keep kind of bumping into it, tech debt. I'm sure there are different definitions of it and different explanations for why it matters. So Manny, give us your definition of what is technical debt.
Well, okay. So first off, I want to give a bit of background. Technical debt is a term that actually comes from Agile. And when I say Agile, I mean the software development methodology. And what it meant in software development is basically when you write some code and there's fancy terms they use like refactoring and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you've written some code and you find later that there was a better or more appropriate way to do it, you have to go back and redo that code. What you've created is technical debt. And because the longer you wait to correct that code, every piece of code that's written that relies on it is going to basically be relying on something that needs to be rewritten. So their technical debt continues to grow. And when I talk about technical debt, I'm talking about I've basically over the last maybe 15 years developed a thing called agile service delivery, where I took a lot of the mindset and the methodologies of agile software development and applied them to service delivery. And I can't get into it. And actually, one of the last times I was on, that's what I was talking about. But the idea is that many of these agile mindsets and methodologies can be applied to the actual service delivery process. And without getting into that too much, I realized that term has a purpose over here in the IT service delivery space. And the way it works over here is if you go out and fix something, let's say you go out and a firewall is down and you go and reload the OS, put the latest version of the OS in, but you didn't apply all of the patches and updates that come along with that new version, and you reload the firewall, fire it up, restore all the settings and put it in place, what you've done is created technical debt, because at some point, if you walk away, you have to go back and finish putting in those patches and those updates and those changes. Now, that's just one example. And it happens all the time. For example, it's mostly when we go to fix stuff. And like this gets into change management, where you're supposed to go, we need to install a new thing. Okay, what all will be affected? Change management says, what all will be affected? Who's going to be concerned? What should we do? What's the right approach? Should we even be doing it? All of that stuff. But instead, technically, we just go out and fix the thing and then say, no big deal, they're back working. Well, because you didn't go through the proper change management process, what you didn't know was if you had gone out there and taken the new switch with you, you could have just as easily have put in the new switch. Now you still have an old switch that has to get installed, right? Things like that. And so when you create that technical debt, it's basically like saying, if I had time to do it right the first time, what would I have done? And the answer is I would have done this. Well, the difference between what you did and what you've got now is technical debt. And in a way, I always say it will come due. You will pay it in interest. And sometimes it can be devastating, right? The interest can be exponential. And I think anybody that without explanation, I think almost anybody in tech would start to realize the ways that they're actually creating technical debt. There's a lot of ways they're creating it.
Yeah, I mean, you gave one example a moment ago. Give us just, the 2 or 3 that most MSPs in the audience probably have.
Probably the biggest one is when somebody goes out to fix a piece of software and they just uninstall Word and put the latest version or put it back on the way it's supposed to be. They don't go and look and see that that was Word 2016, right? You should be they have a corporate license. You should be putting on the latest version of Word, right? If you didn't, at some point, because we're rolling out the latest version, I don't even know what the latest version is. It 2022? Something, I think 20, right? 2022, right? So we have corporate license to that. It's already been mandated that we're going to upgrade everybody. You should have just installed the 2022 version. If there was no reason that end loser doesn't, needs 2016, we should have put them on 2022. So you've created technical debt. We also associate technical debt. I would always use older terms, rework and duplicate work. Think of almost anything you can imagine that's rework is technical debt. So again, you go out, let's say, you go out and take a spare hard drive and put it into a machine to get it up and running, restore the operating system, when in fact, there was a machine. Again, this goes back to the change management. There's somebody in change management already knew we were going to replace that computer, or that we were going to archive that one and take the one from the front office and move it in its place. And you went out, put a hard drive in, restored the data, and it's still this old funky computer that now has a used hard drive, and you didn't get out of the problem. At some point, you're still going to have to take that computer from the front office and put it in here. Now, it's not always easy to say, yeah, but Manny, we don't have time to move that. Okay, but wait a second. I get that, but that's technical debt. and you will pay the interest on it, and it will come due. And that's it in a nutshell.
And so, I mean, is the moral of the story here, to kind of come back to what you were talking about a moment ago, is that over the long term, it's going to pay you back with interest, if you will, to do things right the first time, even though it takes more time, even though you've got a billion tickets that you've got to plow through. Taking that extra time to do it right the first time is going to minimize your technical debt.
Yeah. So what happens is, I was talking about techs. We hire these techs, and we hire smart people, and we go, here, go do what you do. What do? They fix stuff. They're smart, and they figure it out. And left to their own devices, they take the shortest distance between here and this thing being operating and working. They don't stop to think, should we look and see if there's another ticket in the system? Should we look and see if there's a project on board that is literally set out to replace all of these machines? Because if so, they would go to the supervisor and say, look, if you can wait 2 weeks and we can just do some other thing, we won't spend our time making that machine work. And in 2 weeks, you're going to have a new machine. So it's that taking the time to see if there are other possibilities and options or things in play that you don't know about. But this is, again, I'll say that, use the term change management, is a thing that is supposed to belong in IT, where whenever there's an add, move, or a change, there's got to be some group of people or somebody that actually is kind of keeping an eye on the big picture to see to it that the change management is implemented instead of these little technical debts being created. And then the change management finally catches up and we pay off the debt. Like you say, we could have saved X amount of time, whether it's our time spent fulfilling managed services or their money spent paying us for things that aren't covered under managed services. It's either profit or value that is basically lost and interest is paid on.
So there's another form of debt that people in the audience are familiar with, which is credit card debt. And we're talking about, strategies for preventing debt from accumulating. But like in the world of credit card debt, if you've already got a substantial debt, there are strategies for paying that down and then making sure it doesn't come back again. So for the folks out there right now in the audience who have a substantial amount of tech debt accumulated, if you will, are there tips, tricks, strategies for kind of paying down technical debt?
Yeah, so the first thing I would think of is, if you were to sort these, it's all about things that are adds, moves, or changes, right? The first question is there already something in play that's going to solve this problem if I didn't do anything, such as machines that have already been purchased are going to get installed in a project that's starting in 2 weeks, such as somebody leaving the front desk and we're moving that computer. The second one is go look at things that require a significant amount of work and do a simple evaluation. Are we spending the right amount of time? Should we be doing all of that? Is there no other possibility of what could be coming down the pipe? Again, a machine waiting in the wings and that kind of thing. So it really is looking at the largest tickets in the system, or estimated time of 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, and really looking and saying, will I be creating technical debt if I do this? Because there's some other thing at play, including there's already a quote sitting in front of the client. We just have to wait on them to sign it. Well, let's get somebody over here in sales to talk to the client and say, hey, here's the deal. That machine just died. Do you want to move faster on this, or do you want to keep dithering and we do this? And you either pay extra money or we pay extra time, technical debt. And so that'd be the top two ways, right? Look at everything that's an add, move, or change. Look at the biggest things first and see what other options there are before you take action. And it only takes a few minutes, really. But remember, techs, we typically want them to be autonomous. And so it does mean educating the techs as well about, hey, think about it before you just go spend or go get a hard drive or just go fix it. That's a little harder to do, but educating the techs about what's at play and the big picture for, ideally, you should have a client, a roadmap for every one of your clients. So somewhere along the way, the techs could be aware of what's going on in the roadmap. They might make different decisions.
Yeah. Well, some people get rid of their credit card debt by cutting up their credit cards, but we really don't advise you to go run around with a pair of scissors trying to stab your clients. That's also not a good way of getting rid of that technical debt.
There are clients, I don't want anybody to do this, but there are clients, and when I say clients, people, IT service provider clients, who go, look, we've got to manage our expenses. And so they make sure every ticket has to be approved. And there's somebody inside their company who understands the big picture and manages the revenue and everything else. And it's funny because they end up making pretty good decisions about, no, we're not going to do that because we already know we're going to replace that in 2 months. And Carol can be fine with, we're going to get her a laptop and she's going to be okay. They've literally made a decision that will stop their company from spending extra money and creating technical debt for themselves. Well, I think the IT companies should be a lot better at it themselves.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. A very interesting topic for people to think about. So we'll have to do that. And before we end the show, folks, we'll put a lot of Manny's information in the show sheet for you for episode 231. So that way you can, if you want to learn more about that and talk to him and learn more about his coaching that he does, you'll be able to find him and get a hold of him. But I know we got a hard stop, so we got to plow ahead because we still got a lot we got to get through in this show. Holy cow, we've got some news stories coming up. Enable's in the news. We're going to be talking about them. We're going to be talking about Augmentt. They've got something that we're going to talk about that's free, Rich. Really, we'll get to that in a minute. Acronis integrates Cyber Protect and something else. So we'll talk about that. We got a really interesting interview coming up that we recorded a little while ago. So we kind of did that first. We're going to talk to Justin Reinmuth, CEO of Techrug. We're going to be talking about risk management and but we're going to be talking about risk management basically and some other really good things. But you will not want to miss that interview. It's a really, really good one. Unfortunately, Manny wasn't able to join us for that, but he will be with us for the rest of the show. And we've got a whole lot more. Ms. Palachuk's going to be with us. It's really exciting stuff. So, Rich, why don't we just plow ahead? Enable. This is another one of those merger and acquisition stories. You know, in the history of ChannelPro, Rich, we've never seen a company buy another company. It's never happened. So this is exciting. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this was shocking, wasn't it? Oh my goodness, somebody has purchased another company. You know what? This is like, ChannelPro kind of patting itself on the back, but I've got to set it up this way. We do a story every spring in our monthly magazine at ChannelPro called Vendors on the Vanguard, and we go out and we profile briefly, 15 to 20 companies that you probably haven't heard of. They're new, they're underappreciated, they're up and coming, just names for you to kind of check out. And is there any hotter market, any more important product segment for MSPs right now than cloud management, right? Because RMM systems are very good at managing PCs and servers. They tend not to be very good at all at managing cloud workloads. And more of what SMBs do that matters is happening in the cloud. So you kind of need tools to manage that stuff. And it's mostly coming today from smaller vendors. And so folks out there are familiar with names like Skykick and Augmentt and Jump Cloud and Nerdio and so on. We profiled a few that they might not know in this year's Vendors on the Vanguard article, including one called SpinPanel. And by golly, Matt, they must read ChannelPro at Enable, because we learned this week that Enable has purchased SpinPanel. Now, what does SpinPanel do? SpinPanel makes a multi-tenant product for managing Microsoft 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop. You can, heavily automated, a lot of automated tools for deploying, configuring, managing those products. You can, there's security functionality in there around roles and permissions. You can create security baselines for your clients for those products and monitor and enforce those. You can also, there's some business functionality that goes with it too. You can create your own pricing schemes. You can create your own bundles. So you can take the Microsoft Cloud products and add some of your own services and create a bundle with a pricing scheme that you manage. There is self-serve functionality. So if you want to delegate some of this to some of your clients, co-managed or otherwise, that's something you can do. So, I mean, it's a pretty robust cloud management tool. And it gets Enable into the cloud management space basically for the first time. Now, it's going to be sometime later this quarter, Enable says, before this product is officially part of their product portfolio. And I did not get a chance this week to speak with them about whether or not they have plans to I mean, you got to assume that there are integration plans, but I don't know if they have longer term plans to create a single console that's going to do all of this this stuff. But from stepping back a little bit, this fits into this storyline that's come up before, just within the last few weeks, because you'll remember just a few weeks ago, Kaseya held its Connect IT event, and during that event, they previewed the next edition, the forthcoming edition of their RMM solution, which is, among other things, going to include cloud management. So for a long time, we've been talking about the fact that cloud management is this really important thing MSPs need to do. Traditional RMM systems don't do it very well. There are systems born in the cloud designed to do it from other companies, but who kind of wins the race to the promised land here? The smaller, less capitalized, less familiar companies, or the big names like Enable and Kaseya and ConnectWise and so on. And so a few weeks ago, we learned that Kaseya has invested $50 million in 2 years in creating a new version of its RMM system that's going to come out in November and include cloud management. And now Enable, for an amount of money we haven't been told, has gone out and bought the cloud management vendor so that it too is going to be a player in cloud management in addition to device and network management.
Well, and that's probably how the big ones are going to win, right? So even if they don't have, even if they aren't able to modify their products to handle cloud management in a good way, they're just going to go buy one of these smaller upstarts that's doing it well and just do it that way, right?
Well, it makes the most sense. I mean, because you get the most for your buck. You don't have to conceive of it. You just have to take their tool. They're going to spend more, like you said, Rich, they're going to spend most of their time just on the integration. Like, do we just give it a new facelift and plug in all of their major, most important code into the backside of ours? Or do we just have a link that jumps over to another panel? Everybody wants, everything on one, pane of glass, but it's a matter of how bad they screw it up. Because we've seen, companies buy somebody else and they're great. This is going to be great. It's going to be a beautiful marriage of products. And then they just don't get it implemented or integrated, or it stagnates and it doesn't keep up. And now you've got this old thing that you bought that, so we'll see how it goes. Because it could be done wrong, right? It could be implemented wrong.
No, it's a great point, and that is parallel with the Kaseya story as well. So the significant thing that has changed just in the last few weeks is we are actually seeing concrete evidence of these big RMM companies getting serious about cloud management. But it's November, at least. I mean, there could be delays before we see that new Kaseya RMM system. It's whatever, weeks, maybe months before we start actually seeing what Enable is going to do with SpinPanel. And so execution is going to matter a lot. We don't know how well any of this stuff is actually going to work, but it is significant that we're beginning to see aggressive moves in the direction of cloud management by these
10
companies.
years in this space. It's like 10 years behind, but because I mean, like I use Amazon Web Services, and it's just an amazing amount of stuff that you can do in their portal. But a PSA has got to be able to go connect to what's the other one? Amazon Web Services, Azure. I can't think of the other big name that sells server space. They've all got their own ape interfaces, and all of it's these APIs and command line stuff. And really, many of these RMMs are going to have to figure out how to connect to those so that you can say, well, we've got 75 servers in Amazon, and can't even tell you all the different things, SQL servers and instances and everything else in Amazon, and they can load balance, and you want to be able to manage that without going into Amazon. To me, that's next level, right? And these guys are just basically got to the point where, hey, I can manage some web stuff, but can you manage web stuff inside of one of the big behemoth, again, Amazon, Azure, that kind of thing. And I'm curious, where's SolarWinds Enable connection? Is SolarWinds going to implement some of that same for use over there? Enable
is no longer part of SolarWinds.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they spun off independent, publicly traded company now. So SolarWinds is going to have to do its own work in cloud management.
Right. Or invest.
There's a lot of these, man, and we've talked about. There's a lot of these, smaller upstarts that are kind of looking at cloud management, and we're starting to see them kind of get picked off one by one by bigger companies. So Rich, one thing I think we should do is we should have like the wall of predictions. So every time you pick a vendor on the Vanguard that ends up getting swallowed up by a bigger company, we should have like a little plaque that we put up behind you that's like, I got this one right, I got this one right. Because how many of these have you gotten right over the years?
You know, I honestly, I haven't like gone back methodically to look. I should do that, but I was thinking about that a little bit this morning, and it occurred to me in one of probably the very earliest vendor on the Vanguard articles we did, one of the company, and now I'm forgetting the name of the company. I think it was Centra Stage, something like that. It was an RMM maker based in the UK. And within a year, they got bought by Autotask, which at that time was an independent company. And so that product became Autotask's RMM product. Autotask merged with Datto and became, I assume there's still some code that dates back to that earlier acquisition that, that became Datto RMM. Datto is now part of Kaseya. Kaseya now owns, but that was the one that I could think of. But I'll bet there are others too.
Yeah, well, if there's any of that code still around, that's serious tech debt, right, Mr. Palachuk?
Oh my God. Yeah. If you were a programmer, you just would be afraid, be like, wait a minute, how many generations back? Like, oh my God, the people that wrote this code are sitting on a beach somewhere because they got paid off. When Autotask bought that software, they've done something else, and there's no one that knows what that code means, right? And so you're just going to have to rebuild it. So you should start a pool, Rich, at the ChannelPro events. Go, hey, get in on the pool for the Vanguard pool, right? And get some folding money out of this. If you call it right, somebody else would get the right answer. And
yeah, we'll start taking bets on which company is going to go next, and we can have people kind of bet on the over unders, and yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. We should do that, and all proceeds go to me. I'm just going to say that up front. So
I came up with the idea.
And 1% idea surcharge for Mr. Palachuk. I'm kidding. We'll split the pot fairly. Rich, we're going to move on to our next story, and that is Augmentt. They've launched free, something for free. If Rich, tell us about it, and tell us if it's really free.
And it just occurred to me as you were saying that, I've got to throw this in. Augmentt is a relatively young company. It's one of I mentioned it actually just a little bit before. It's one of those born in the cloud management vendors. That's all they do. It was founded by the two people who founded Enable, the original Enable, like 20 years ago, the RMM maker. And you're absolutely right, Manny. They sold that company, I want to say in 2013. It was somewhere around that, and that's 9 years ago. And I remember I interviewed the two of them when they launched Augmentt, and they basically said all the way back then, we knew that what the software we just sold does isn't going to be all that important 10 years from now. It's going to be all about cloud management, and down the road, that's what they did. They created a cloud management company. And what that cloud management company did this week, is launch a new free software program. And we'll get back into the program aspect of that. But basically what they did is introduce two free tools to their partners. So Augmentt makes a tool that you can use to do asset discovery and inventory of software as a service and now desktop applications. They have a cloud kind of monitoring and management tool for the workloads. They have a security product. So they have a range of cloud management and security solutions that you pay for. But if you're using any of these tools, you now have access to these free tools as well, each of which is designed generally in a kind of a provisional way. We'll get into that. To deal with a pain point that they've heard about from their MSP partners. So one of them, for example, is called the Augmentt Email and Notification Console. And this is going to be very familiar to everyone in the audience. You work with a lot of vendors. They are bombarding you all day long with emails, 95% of which you really don't need to pay attention to, but the other 5% you really need to pay attention to because it's about a billing issue or a critical vulnerability or a patch that you immediately need to apply. And so this new tool, free tool from Augment, basically allows you to create an unlimited number of inboxes that Augment will host for you. And then you go to your vendors and you say, from now on, don't send all those emails, your gajillion emails to me at my address, send them to this address. And you give them the Augment hosted address. All that stuff's going to land in their inbox. And then based on rules that you define, Augment will inspect all that stuff that's coming in. And if it sees something that's billing related, and you told it to automatically send anything billing related to your finance guy, it'll just automatically route it out to finance. If you said, if you see anything about a patch, send it to my techs, it'll do that. And it can send it to your PSA and open up a ticket. It can send it to a Slack or a Teams channel. Basically, it's just designed to watch and filter all that email noise that's coming in so that you don't miss something that's really important. Now, I said a lot of this stuff is kind of provisional. They have longer term plans at Augment to connect to cloud vendors via API and pull all those alerts directly into the Augment management system so that you're not getting email at all anymore. Anything that you need to know about is just showing up in the cloud management interface, and you're getting alerted when appropriate there. But for now, here's something you can use to maybe make a headache go away or partially go away. Another one is called the Augment Security Auditing Tool for Salesforce. So today, Augment supports Microsoft and the Google Workspace. They don't have any cloud management support for Salesforce. Someday down the road, they will. That is on the roadmap. It's something that they have plans to do in the future. But for now, what they saw was an opportunity to create a tool, roll it out for free to their customers that would perform a sort of security auditing function for you. So you load this thing up, you run it for your Salesforce users and your client base, and it'll go out and it'll look, inventory the accounts. It'll look for the health and status of those accounts right now, users, privileges, policy compliance, licensing status. API use, all the kind of stuff that you want to audit for security purposes and keep an eye on. It'll go out and pull that together for you. This is a one-way read-only kind of tool. It's going to collect that information and feed it to you. There's nothing you can kind of do the other way to change anything that you see without going into the Salesforce management interface. All of that you will be able to do through Augment's tools later when they add Salesforce functionality to the platform. But for now, where you really do need to be thinking about the security of anything cloud related that your customers are using, including Salesforce, here's a little something that can help you get a start on that. Maybe it'll make getting into Salesforce services a little less intimidating for MSPs out there, and it doesn't cost anything. So these are the first two installments of what Augment is calling its free software program. They're going to roll out another tool approximately once every quarter going forward from this point.
So my first question about this is, are they boasting that this is something, I'm hoping, more than just a basic parsing type algorithm running, that they're maybe actually tapping into some deep, some actual big data type tools to make the assessment of what email should be passed? Because what you say, it sounds like, oh, give me these keywords and we'll sort for those. I'm hoping it's something a little more intelligent, considering what we have available to us now. That there's some deep thinking algorithm that you're feeding information to that learns to understand which, like a very intelligent spam filter. I would hope they're using something more than just a parsing filter.
Yeah, I really don't know how sophisticated the back end is. I mean, this was something that their developers created, with like spare time during the workday, evenings, weekends, and just as a by the by, it was really the developers who came to management and said, "Can we do this?" Because they were hearing, from customers about all these different needs, and they were thinking, I think I know how to help with that. And they kind of needed permission to go out and create something. So I don't know if they had the time, the budget, the wherewithal to do deep thought.
Well, but I mean, but even just BI, right? Just
Yeah.
at the end of the day, BI is access to something that's smarter than just a parsing filter. I'm hoping they're doing that, because then it becomes a learning thing, and your time invested is in a tool that is the future. Because I mean, if you think about all these, you talk about all the reports, knowing what the alert side of an RMM looks like, is all these alerts that drive space is below this thing. No, that was only while SQL was redoing the database in the middle of the night. Now it's cleared off its space and it's fine. That alert should go away, but it doesn't. It's still there. Well, we need to start applying BI to some of these things that they make a little bit better intelligence decision instead of having some human run through this. And I see that those alerts and filters and a better way to manage them, no different than the email. There's got to be, you say, well, there's got to be some human element, or there's got to be some intelligent element. And I would just hope that they spent the time and energy to make it an BI or something, that
I was going to make a similar comment. Like, I mean, if all you're doing is, if you have to go and write rules for all of the stuff you're doing, I mean, you can do that in lots of different ways. So hopefully they're going to have some templates to follow, or as rules get created by their customers who end up using this tool, those become accessible to other customers. Like, they didn't really get into the weeds on this, did they?
No, but I mean, from a labor saving standpoint, it's just a question of even if you are kind of having to think that out yourself without templates or guides to draw on and so forth, it's kind of like you do that once, and now instead of having to deal with that invoice related email that's coming in all the time, it's kind of taken care of for you. But yeah, I didn't actually get deep into the weeds with these guys on either of these tools.
And does it send you Go ahead, Manu. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, if there's any intelligence to it, I would think that they would be boasting that and saying, hey, this isn't just a filter and this isn't just a scheme. Like, when you tell it that this email matches this criteria, we find the 62 points and we stuff it into BI, and now we will never, it's not like it's going to be hit or miss because they forgot to use a word. We know that email came from the billing department and there's 28 points inside that email, and BI takes care of it. It's much more intelligent. I would think they would be boasting that, that this is more than, but I guess we'll find out. We'll see how they market it. And
yeah, I guess we'll see. And, as you said, in the world of agile development, they can add features and they can make changes and they can do all this stuff as it evolves, and we'll see where it evolves to. But Rich, I also know that I am very hesitant, hesitant is not the right word. I don't see businesses doing things for charitable reasons, right? So if free normally leads to something paid, is this one of those things where, they're going to send you, you're going to get all your emails in there and they're going to say like, oh, we have an email that we think matches the patch thing. Sign up today for your subscription for blah, blah, blah. Like, how is this going to push people into paid stuff?
Or pull, maybe. So I really don't think they're going to use any of these free tools as a sort of sales hook for an add-on or something like that. But there is a sort of sales related dimension to this, and it's kind of interesting. So, longtime listeners might remember in February, I was at an event that Nerdio, another cloud management vendor, did. And I asked them during my interview, like, who do you view as your big competitors? And they basically said, we're really not focused at all on other cloud management companies. What we're focused on is this giant population of MSPs and other IT providers out there who are either not doing cloud in a big way or not doing cloud management. And it's like, how do we get their attention? How do we help them understand what they're missing out on? And how do we make it, easy for them to get into this with us? And that's exactly the issue that Augment is focused on as well. This isn't about, how do we get somebody hooked on something free and then offer them something that's a little bit better, but you have to pay for it. This is like, how do we get partners to just come do business with us? Another thing they announced this week, I didn't even talk about. One of Augment's products is Augment Discover, which is that asset inventory system that I talked about. And now if you are an Augment Discover user, you get 100 free licenses of that product. And this is very much a situation where they're hoping that those 100 free licenses they give you will entice you to test it out, kick the tires, use it with a customer to fall in love with it, they hope, and then buy a lot more down the road. But what they're trying to do is make that barrier to entry so low that you'll be that much more inclined to give them a try. That's what these free software tools are about as well. It's just, more stuff for you to kind of take a second look at Augment, start working for them, and then as you get more involved with, more serious about cloud management, then yeah, absolutely, you're going to be more and more invested with them. But the big problem right now is what do we got to do just to get people to come to us and start doing business with us at all?
Very interesting. Well, I guess we will see if it works. So we'll keep an eye on these tools, and we'll see what you get out of them. And folks, if you go and try it out, let us know how it works. Let us know what you think. Go to YouTube, leave a comment there. Let us know what you think. If you want to send us an email,
tell us if it's intelligent. Tell us if it's more than just because I could do all those filters in Outlook, right?
I know that's what I was gonna say. Like I could set up a folder and just route everything to a folder.
Yeah,
in Outlook
right.
And just run rules on that. So
yeah.
It's got to be better than that, right?
I'm hoping so. Let's find out.
So folks, let us know what you think. Let us know how it works. Let us know if it's smart, or let us know if it looks like they're paving the way to have it be a more interesting business intelligence tool. Let us know if it really is free, or if it starts to try to promote other things, and keep us informed on that. Go to YouTube, use the comment area if you want. Send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com. That's how you can get a hold of us here, and we will check that out. Rich, our last news story that we're going to talk about is from Acronis. They have got some integration going. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and this will be a quick one, but it is kind of interesting because I don't hear about this particular kind of integration all that often. That might just be me not knowing this is far more common than I realized. But what Acronis announced this week is that their Cyber Protect Cloud product, their sort of flagship integrated portfolio of security and BDR tools, now integrates directly with remote access software from Splashtop. And it is, practically the most familiar thing in the world for MSPs to have integration with a remote access tool from inside an RMM system. And in fact, a lot of the RMM vendors have their own remote access tool. Nothing unusual at all about that. Nothing unusual about remote access integration with a documentation system like IT Glue, for example, another Kaseya property. They have all sorts of ways that you can kind of remote out to a system straight from the documentation. What Acronis is doing now is offering that same kind of functionality from within their security and BDR tool, so that if you're seeing something that you need to investigate, you need to troubleshoot, or there's a problem that you actually need to remote into a device to investigate and remediate, instead of having to switch over to the RMM system and do it over there, you can actually go straight out of the Acronis interface and open the remote access session with your customer from there. And pretty much all of the functionality that you get from a Splashtop session, file transfer, remote reboot, chat, all that stuff's going to be available to you if you initiate the session from inside the Acronis software. And the obvious benefits that Acronis is highlighting is less swivel chairing between different management consoles, more technician productivity as a result, and theoretically you are both remediating issues a little bit faster for customers, and maybe coping with, mitigating security issues a little faster, keeping people safer, and that can increase customer satisfaction as well. So this is the first remote access integration of any kind that Acronis at least has. Different kind of integration from my end of things, and I thought worth highlighting quickly.
And this
is that a partnership, or did they buy that? I mean, because this is a strategic partnership that they just decided to get and make sure their API works well with theirs, or did they buy it?
A strategic partnership. So Splashtop remains a totally independent company, but there is now an integration relationship between those two companies.
Well, that's smart on Splashtop's side. They get the entire access to the entire market for Acronis or yeah.
And it said this is available to Acronis users free of charges, but they have to be Splashtop customers, I would assume, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and this applies to I'm just looking up the name because Splashtop has a number of different products this could apply to, and it actually applies to all of them. So Splashtop Business Access, Splashtop Enterprise, Splashtop Remote Support, Splashtop SOS. If you use any of those and Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud, you can take advantage of this integration.
And if you are an Acronis user using a different remote access solution, this might be better because it's all integrated now and it's simpler and it'll be more productive. So something you that absolutely want to go check out. Interesting stuff. We'll put links to all of these news stories because there's more details in here and links off to learn more. We'll put them in the show notes for episode 231. So if you're going to go to the channelpronetwork.com website, find the show sheet for 231. It's usually easy to find. And you can click on all these links in there. If you're on your phone, you can open the description area. Usually the links are in there. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. Comments are always important. Hit the bell. Like YouTube makes you press so many different things these days. Just so press everything on the screen on YouTube. You might end up at a cat video as well, but you'll also end up liking this one and subscribing. So that's important. But open the description area there, and you'll see all the links there as well. And of course, if you're on a cool cat video and you think it's funny, share that with us as well, because we like funny cat videos here at ChannelPro Weekly. With that, Rich, we are going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to be switching to an interview we did with Justin Reinmuth, who's the CEO of Techrug. We're going to be talking about risk management for Channel Pros, and that is a really, really important interview. Like I mentioned earlier, Mr. Palachuk was not able to join us for this one because we recorded it a little while ago, but he will be back with us in part 3 on the other side. So make sure you stick around for that. We will be right back. Are you an MSP who is recommending Dell hardware to your end users? If so, then you'll want to check out the Dell Expert Network. The new Dell Expert Network program is a rewards and incentives program designed for service-focused MSPs who are supporting the small business market. This program is designed to deliver value and save time for MSPs who are recommending their end users to purchase Dell hardware. Currently, Dell Expert Network customers get an additional 3% back in Dell rewards when they buy Microsoft servers. Check out the Dell Expert Network today. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. You know, most, if not all, service providers like you offer cybersecurity tools and services to prevent, detect, and mitigate threats from attackers around the world. But you also have to do this for yourself. Cyber insurance is increasingly more popular and necessary and intended to help cover losses in the event prevention doesn't work. Both are just different forms of risk management. But according to Justin Reinmuth, CEO of Techrug, it's actually way more than that. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, thank you for having me, Matt. I appreciate it.
It's great having you on the show. I'd love if you could take a couple minutes to tell us a little bit more about you and a little bit more about Techrug.
Sure. Techrug, we are we do a lot of different types of insurance, but mostly what we're known for is cyber liability, errors, and omissions insurance. We work with about 1,800 MSPs across the United States. But as you alluded to, it's much more than just insurance. We work a lot with, risk management techniques, risk transfer techniques. We also do other variety of policies when it comes to things like management liability and crime policies. So I think since 2004, we've had the responsibility of writing just over 18,000 policies.
That's a lot of policies. And you are located where at?
We are in Columbus, Ohio.
So that parking lot I see out the window there, for those who are watching, that's the world of Ohio in the Midwest.
It's bare because everyone's at the beach in Florida.
Yeah, so and it's funny we should talk about that because we were talking about at the beginning of the show how you're kind of short-staffed, and it's an interesting topic because as we all have been through it, there's been kind of this pandemic that's kept everybody kind of locked in and maybe not taking a lot of vacation time, but you're seeing this huge demand now for people to take time off. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I was telling you guys that, there's been a lot of people not only taking off, but the amount of time they're taking off. So, I've had several employees, which, hey, they've earned over the last 2 years, not going anywhere, but, they're taking 10-day cruises, right? Or they're taking, 2 weeks off at a time. I mean, I even think we had a couple of insurance carriers on the 4th of July that not only were they closed on the Monday, but they gave off their employees on Tuesday. So they didn't open back up till Wednesday. So they were giving them an extra day. So, the world's changed a little bit and shifted,
That's interesting. Now, Rich is always very diligent about taking his vacation time, so he didn't have it pent up. But I have to imagine, Rich, that this has probably affected a lot of MSPs out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I've had conversations with them about, but you're probably exactly right. They've kind of gotten used to having their technicians in particular around like all the time, and people are now catching up on vacation time they didn't use before. And then the other thing, of course, is it's hard to get technicians these days. It's hard to keep them. And so vacation time is, it's a benefit that I'm sure people are negotiating. So yeah, beyond technicians, just employees in general, I'll bet, are getting more vacation time than they used to.
And the duration is also an interesting one too. I wonder if some companies are having to put in restrictions in place, like you can't take entire months off, at once and things like that. So very cool. So Justin, what kind of things do you do in Ohio outside of when you're not covering for your employees who are leaving you in droves for cruises?
Matt, I'm going to sound really boring, but between running Techrug, family obligations, there isn't a lot more else. I mean, I decided to help my son out and coach his soccer team. So I guess that's, and they're in this select. So it takes me not all around Ohio, but sometimes outside of Ohio. So, at this point in my life, like I said, it's probably Groundhog Day. It's, do work, do family events, go home, grab a beer and some dinner and go to bed and do it all over again. So I wish I could tell you some great story, but that's not me.
No, that's like, actually, you and I line up perfectly because that's pretty much what I do. I have kids that are very heavily involved in sports and activities. So it's worked in the day and sports at night and wherever, basically, like I like to joke that I'm an unpaid Uber driver for my children because it's just driving them around like crazy.
But I think I'm going to go and get a Nintendo after this, after seeing Behind Your Head. So I think that you incentivized me to maybe pick up video games again.
You should. Well, let's talk after the show. I might be able to help you out with that.
Yeah.
So
I remember the days of Donkey Kong and all that. I mean, it was good times. So when I was a kid.
Absolutely. So we're not here to necessarily talk about Nintendo. We are here to talk about cyber insurance. And you basically say that, risk, that we're talking about risk management, right? And risk management general pros, but it's more than just cyber insurance. So let's kind of dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, part of, I guess if you were to look at a holistic approach, for an MSP, insurance would definitely be one part of it. But I think the other thing that, people have to pay attention to is that the insurance policy is a reactionary product. In other words, it's like calling the fire department. When something went bad, you're engaging the insurance policy. So when the fire department, i.e. the claims adjuster, show up to the house, is it going to be a whole house fire or one bedroom fire? It really depends on what the MSP is doing, proactively, right? And so, I think that we call it PIC here at Techrug, but it's protection, insurance, and contract. So, protection meaning that both the MSP has to have their house in order, but so does the client. I mean, too many times we see claims where, especially over the last probably, it's going on, I would say almost 24 months now, where if you were to ask me, am I more scared about the ransomware attack against the MSP, or am I more scared about the ransomware attack or the business email compromise or the cyber crime event to the MSP's client that then lands on the lap of my MSP via a lawsuit? I'm more worried about the latter, right? Because too many times MSPs, they've got standards to follow, whether it's, CIS, CMMC, NIST, ISO, COBIT, you pick it. They need to be sitting down with clients and saying, hey, as your CIO of the organization, here's the standard we follow. Within the standard, here are all 30 things that we do for our clients. Of those 30 things, you're doing 5. So don't tell me I didn't tell you about the other 25. If they want to self-insure it, that's totally fine. I mean, using a home example, Matt, again, I'm not sure where you live, but you probably don't carry flood and earthquake if it's not required by the bank. You've chosen to self-insure that. If something goes wrong and your house gets destroyed via flood, then you've chose to self-insure that. That's fine if clients have budgets and they choose to self-insure it, but document, because you don't want, the lack of MFA on email and remote access, or, an EDR product or a SOC SIM solution. You don't want that coming back on your lap, and too many times we see it. So I think protection over the last 3 years has always been, kind of the MSPs have paid attention to their house, but it's just as important, if not more important, that your clients have those same protections in place. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine. If they want to self-insure it, but it needs to be documented and acknowledged by both parties that they're choosing to do that,
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I mean, it seems a core element of risk management for an MSP, and I should say, just as context, you were a speaker at an online event we did earlier this year. The session was about cyber insurance, and when we were kind of prepping for that beforehand, you said, happy to talk about cyber insurance. Risk management for an MSP is a much bigger topic, and that's what I kind of wanted to get into here.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example. Everybody in the audience here has experienced that situation where they do go to, I would bet most people listening or watching right now are pretty diligent about telling the customer, here's what you need to be doing. But there are plenty of SMBs out there that just won't do it. They won't do it now, or they won't do it at all. So from an MSP's risk management standpoint, managing their own risk, how specifically do you advise your clients to deal with that situation where you presented to the customer what you need to do and they're just not moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, all of them, I would assume, do QBRs, right? Or annual security, sit down meetings with their clients, however they handle it. Why isn't a statement of work or a detailed list being presented saying, hey, as your MSP, here's the standard we follow, give them a link to NIST or whatever it is, because you have to reference where your solutions, your security solutions are coming from. It can't be, hey, I just woke up today and I think you need a SOC SIEM slate. It can't be that, right? So you have to reference the standard, just like a doctor would follow the AMA guidelines, just like an accountant would follow the AICPA. Justin would follow the Department of Insurance. There's plenty of licensed professional out there that we have to follow standards, or guess what? We lose our license and there's consequences. MSPs just don't lose their license because there isn't one. I know there's states talking about and people doing that, but as of right now, you don't lose your license, you just get sued. So when you're sitting down the QBRs, give them the standard you follow, lay out all the 30 things that you do in the standard. So an example might be, Rich, that you don't do pen testing or vulnerability scanning. But if it's in the standard, the client can't come back and say, well, you didn't tell. No. We gave you the standard. If you chose not to look at it, that's on you. We gave you the link, but we told you within that standard, if there were 80 things, we do 30 of them. And then it needs to be relayed to the client. You're electing 5. That's fine. We have the most success with our MSPs when they center it around invoicing. So when you sit down, it's not a waiver letter. It's not a critical action letter. It's, I need to get this document signed. So when I go back to my office, Johnny or Sally know how to invoice you. Because if I don't get this signed, we're going to invoice you for all 40 things. That's the way our system does it, however they want to handle that. But you need to get acknowledgement from both parties that, yes, we are choosing not to run without these 25 things. Because, Rich, I've been through hundreds of lawsuits, and it's the classic, it's not if, it's when, right? But that's never more true than now. Your clients that are running without certain basic security elements, and I'm talking MFA, I'm talking EDR, I'm talking security awareness training, I'm talking just basic things, 3-2-1 kind of segregated backups. If they aren't doing that, they're going to get nailed. Now, I don't know if it's going to be in 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, 2 months. I don't know, but they're going to get hit. And you don't want that problem ending up on your doorstep. And if it ends up in your lap, I'll save you the suspense. They usually sue you and they usually fire you. So why not have the conversation under good terms at their office? If not, you're going to have it at a deposition at their attorneys.
So there are a bunch of different forms of risk. We're kind of talking about security related risk, which is going to be top of mind for folks out there right now. But I mean, there's also potentially, legal risk, financial risk. So, I mean, what are the different realms of risk that you talk about with your clients?
I mean, I don't know ours, because those will kind of go together, right? When we get into a lawsuit, in other words, the financial risk enters in there. With me, I think it's more of just, where is the risk coming from? You've got your traditional E&O risk, right? So if you lose client data, you breach the contract, you've got kind of the traditional E&O risk. But you also got a first and a third party cyber risk. So the third party cyber risk is unauthorized access into your client's system, i.e. the tech takes down MFA and doesn't put MFA back on. Guess what? If you don't have a cyber provision in your traditional E&O policy, you don't have coverage for it. Okay, so there's a third party risk component. There's also a first party risk, and that started in 2019 when the MSPs started getting nailed because they figured, hey, is it easier to go after 10 chiropractors or nail one MSP and hit 50, right? They found out it's that, and now it's going up, which is going to enter us into the fourth part of our conversation, the vendor risk. How many people on this are actually sitting down and sharing the T's and C's of the vendors that they work with? I'll save you the suspense. When we started doing it, none of them even did it 2 years ago. And our clients are like, what are you talking about? And we said, did you read that particular vendor contract in the end user agreement that says you don't have a choice? You have to share their hold harmless indemnification and limitation of liability with the client. Did you do it? No, I didn't. Well, now we're in big trouble, because if the vendor has a situation and the client goes to sue the vendor and you signed on their behalf saying that you would share the hold harmless indemnification, the T's and C's with that client, and you didn't, then the client is going to sit up. If they go to sue vendor A is going to say, I'm a little lost here. Your MSP signed and said that you acknowledged that you accepted these terms and conditions. And, and now you got us in a whole other situation, right? So you got vendor exposure. We already talked a little bit about, you got your client's exposure. If they're not doing certain things when it's centered around security posture, it'll probably end up on your lap, because they are not going to take a $700,000 cyber, ransomware attack or a cyber crime event too lightly. And we always get, all their friends. Well, that's great, they're friends, but their attorney isn't. The attorney's very black and white. They're there to do a job for their client, and it's to get them the money back.
So that vendor exposure issue you just spoke about is a really interesting one, and I'm curious to get some more thoughts about the right way to handle that, because if a big RMM maker, or Microsoft for that matter, says, if you're going to use our stuff, you're going to indemnify us in this manner, if that's sort of in the contract, there's presumably very little that the MSP can do to negotiate that out of the contract. So what should they do to cover themselves as best they can from that risk?
Supply the client with the terms and conditions.
What was that?
So supply their client with the terms and conditions. It
So
can
that
be
everybody knows going in, this is what you're signing up for.
I mean, think about it, right? Let's use a hospital analogy. If a surgeon takes out medical malpractice to do knee surgery and he rents a room in the hospital, he is ensuring, his medical malpractice is saying, if I screw up something in the surgery room, I give you an infection, I cut into the wrong knee, my medical malpractice is going to cover that, right? But if they take you up to the 3rd floor of a hospital in whatever town you're in, and they put you into a bed that has dirty sheets and you get an infection in your knee, it's still an infection in your knee, but it's the hospital's problem, not the surgeon's problem. So why is it that MSP's clients sue the surgeon under that same example? The surgeon tells you, hey, I'm not responsible for anything else that goes on in the hospital. You talk to the hospital about it. You have to sign something when you go into surgery, right, to accept that. Unfortunately, I've had knee surgery. But, the same thing is that, with MSPs, there is a cyber universe out there, but they're only in charge of their planet. They're not insuring against the universe. So don't get in the situation of taking on the risk for billions of dollars worth of your vendors. You think cyber insurance is expensive now? Wait till you start asking them to insure vendor A, B, and C. It's going to get real expensive.
And never put your clients in dirty sheets. That's just a good general rule of thumb of life.
See, that's why we got mad here.
Yeah, if we know nothing else about them, the sheets are clean at home. This is for sure. And now, of course, I've completely lost my train of thought.
We're talking about the T's and C's of the vendors, right? I mean, how do we, there's nothing you could do. You're right, Rich. You can't negotiate. You're going to have zero success doing it. You can't. But again, we talked about it. You can transfer that risk where it needs to go, on the shoulders of the client, because if they can change vendor A's terms and conditions, good luck.
So that's actually a good example of something that I did want to get into a little bit. I don't know how much of this you do, but I mean, the terms and conditions discussion we just had could fit into a larger category of contract-related risk, things that you either say or don't say in a master services agreement or an SLA that could expose you to risk. Are there examples of that you might cite?
Yeah, don't ever say all, don't ever say never, right? I mean, we see too many times, even forget contracts, Rich. I mean, how many people have websites that say we eliminate ransomware? No, you don't eliminate. You can help reduce, you can help minimize. We get all the times lawsuits where people take pictures of, Facebook accounts or, LinkedIn or, advertising promotional material. If you told them you would eliminate it, then you told us you'd eliminate it. We didn't have to worry about it. You didn't eliminate it, we're going to sue you. You breached the contract. So it's just, you're not a contract, but you represented that you were going to do something, you didn't do it. Therefore, it's grounds for a lawsuit. So forget the contract's a business relationship. It needs to stay that way. It's not a marketing, it's not a flyer, it's not a pamphlet, a promotional document. It's a business relationship document.
So, I mean, you know, insurance is really, in some ways, the most familiar piece of risk management, and there's more than that going on here. But let's talk a little bit about that, because one of the things that came up some months back when we were first speaking, and again, it was all about cyber insurance we were talking about, and you kind of wanted at one point in the conversation to clarify a misunderstanding that you sometimes run into. Cyber insurance is very important, and MSPs need to be recommending or demanding, you know, that their clients carry that. But that's protecting them. That's not protecting you, the MSP, if the client gets breached. So, you know, it's the E&O, the errors and omissions policy, that is critical, just as critical for the MSP in the event their client gets breached, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, the E&O policy is not your client's cyber policy, you know, is kind of what I'm hearing here. So, you know, your MSA should have, it lists what you as an MSP, you know, what insurance you're going to carry during the terms of the relationship. Most of them say, I'm going to carry general liability insurance at 1 mil, 2 mil limits. I'm going to carry workers' comp insurance. I'm going to carry E&O insurance. There needs to be a provision in the policy of the client's responsibility that they will carry cyber insurance through the terms of the relationship. So that should be in the MSA, you know, because you don't want, again, if something is outside of your control and it impacts your clients, why should your cyber E&O policy even be on the table? So part of risk management or risk transfer is the client carrying cyber insurance. If their staff mistake or their rogue employee or their exposure leads to a ransomware, a business email compromise, a cyber crime event, the buffer between you and your policy and them is their cyber policy. That's exactly where it belongs. They need to carry cyber insurance. No ifs, ands, or buts.
So not every E&O, I mean, most E&O policies are not probably specifically designed with IT providers or MSPs in mind. For that particular market, for the folks who are listening or watching right now, are there particular kinds of coverage, attributes to an E&O policy that they should be looking for?
Yeah, so we talked about a little, I mean, a traditional, if you take out, and we still see it this day and age, Rich, I mean, 2022, I never thought I'd do it, but you still see traditional E&O policies that have no cyber. So, you know, make sure that you've got, and cyber is a generic term. It's probably like if I were to take 10 of our 1,800 MSPs and say define managed services, I get 9 different answers, right? I mean, so there are very specific insuring agreements that make up a cyber policy, right? But I don't want to, you know, we don't have a chart or anything. I don't want to sit here and list every insuring agreement that they have. I mean, that's why you got the agent, right? But some things you want to make sure you've got network security. You want to make sure you got privacy liability. You know, make sure you've got coverage for cyber extortion. You know, make sure you got coverage for business interruption. You know, system damage, bricking coverage for computer hardware replacement. I mean, there's a list of stuff that you should have in the policy. But you know, when it comes to those policies, even now, Rich, the insurance carriers, because of some of the stuff that we've talked about in this conversation, you've asked them to do too much. So 85% of the market has either said, you know what, we're not insuring MSPs, or you know what, we used to charge you $1, now we're charging you $4, right? So they're increasing it. But what also they're doing, Rich, is they're defining, is the definition of data held in the cloud, is that covered or not covered? Depends on the carrier. Some of them now don't want to cover it. There's a big thing called co-insurance now that's going on in the cyber industry. Techrug policies, we don't have it as of now, but a lot of the carriers now are adding co-insurance. Co-insurance is, they're lifting it from the health insurance. If you've got a $2 million cyber extortion limit and you get hit and your co-insurance is 20%, guess what, Mr. or Mrs. MSP, you pay $400, the insurance carrier will pay $1.6 million. How many MSPs have $400,000 sitting around?
Well, that very true. And that actually leads into a very interesting discussion about the massive increases in costs that we've seen for cyber insurance coverage. Because you're saying, you know, you should go to your clients, you say you should have cyber insurance coverage. What if they can't afford it?
Again, that's not an us problem. I mean, you know, they need it. I mean, it's just, you know, to me, again, just speaking with everything going on, you know, there's statistics out there, but I had read one the other day and I don't know where to reference it. So, you know, I don't know where I got it, but I saw it. It was like, there's a ransomware attack. I think it was 13 or 14 seconds. Do you think there's a house fire every 13 or 14 seconds? My answer would probably be there's not, right? So I guess my answer would be to save money if you don't have the budget, cancel your home insurance because the likelihood of a house fire is very small. And now you take out cyber insurance. You know what I mean? Like, it has to be part of the insurance portfolio. It's just, if they don't want to do it and it's in the MSA, you know, that they signed, that's a them problem, not the MSP's problem.
Well, and so what advice would you give for MSPs who are struggling even insuring themselves because their cyber insurance costs have just gone through the roof the last 2 years? What can they do to try to get those costs down?
I mean, I would say sometimes, Matt, there's a reason that the costs are up, right? So, you know, without getting it, but is the MSP using an MSA? Some still don't. So if you're going to ask the insurance carrier to be the first line of defense, and you've got other people that are limiting their liability to 6 months worth of fees, who do you think should be treated better, right? So, you know, I don't know. Do they have a private cloud exposure? You know, with no SOC 2, SOC, you know, type 1, or, you know, SOC 2 type 2, or a SOC for cyber. There's plenty of SOCs out there, but why not take them to Azure or AWS and give them Azure and AWS's terms and conditions? Like, why take on that exposure? So I'm not saying that some of the cyber insurance carriers aren't trying to make up for money that they've lost, but the part you don't hear is when we get submissions and go, wow, you're still doing what? You know, there's a lot of folks out there that still operationally aren't that mature.
Sure. We've also seen a lot of recent stories about cyber insurance providers kind of teaming up with distributors to offer, you know, kind of packages and things like that. Is that something that Techrug is doing or looking at?
No, so I think in what you're referring to, a lot of what they're doing is, and I've seen this recently too with a couple of the carriers, is you'll have, you know, carrier A that'll say, hey, by taking out our cyber policy, you know, you're also getting access to this particular backup product, if you like, or this particular MFA solution. So, you know, we have started to see some of the carriers, you know, offering some security solutions. And I think what they're doing on their end is they're saying, hey, these are the 3 or 4 pain points where we really get nailed. If the MSP isn't going to big brother them, we're going to big brother them. So you don't see it so much on the MSP side of the house. You know, the carriers aren't doing that sort of stuff. But when you're talking about the MSP's clients that want to take out cyber insurance, you know, I definitely have seen a couple carriers in the space that have said, hey, these are our 3 or 4 pain points. We're really getting nailed with claims. We're going to make sure that, you know, we're kind of big brother in this.
You know, we've been talking about E&O insurance. If there's one kind of insurance I'm reasonably confident most of the folks in the audience have, it's that. I have no idea. You would know better than me whether it's likely that they have enough of that or the right kind, but they probably have an E&O policy. I certainly hope so. But I mean, Techrug offers a whole bunch of other kinds of policies, business owners policy, directors and officers, employment practices liability. I mean, what is the full sort of, you know, portfolio, the full range of insurance types that an IT provider or MSP probably needs?
Yeah, no, it's actually a really good question, because I was surprised, you know, like a lot of them, like you said, we get a lot of, you know, hey, I've got business insurance, so I'm covered. And it's like, no. On page 91 of your business insurance policy, there's a professional and services exclusion that says, hey, doctor, if you're going to perform surgery, go take out the medical malpractice. And hey, accountant, if you're going to do taxes, go take out accountant's professional liability, right? Same thing in there. They have, you know, computer consulting programming. They have language centered around there that says, hey, MSP, if you're going to do IT work, go take out E&O insurance. So I would say a majority, Rich, of the clients that are probably, you know, sub $2 or $3 million in revenue, they're going to take out a business insurance policy. The business insurance policy, it does a lot more than what people think. I mean, it's obviously got coverage for, you know, business personal property. It's got coverage for general liability. If, you know, you're at a client site and you knock over a vase or scratch their drywall. You know, it's got coverage for client property, if well written, that's in your care, custody, and control, that you might be staging a server. So it's got client property. But it also covers things that, you know, some people may not think about, like hired non-owned auto. We've had situations where techs go out to a client site and they get into an accident in their own auto. Well, let's say they carry the state minimum. Here in Ohio, that's $12,500. But let's say it's a $100,000 claim. Guess where the attorney goes for the difference of the $87,500? Your business insurance policy. They go after the non-owned auto liability policy. So, you know, the business insurance, why it doesn't pick up the E&O, you know, it's good to have in there for, business personal property, computer equipment, client equipment, non-owned auto liability. It's got like equipment breakdown if there's a power surge or electric arcing. I know we get a lot of storms here in the Midwest, that'll take down the power lines or cut off the power and it re-engages. We have situations where it'll cause a power surge and it'll knock out a server. So that's kind of what a business insurance policy does. But I think the biggest takeaway on the business insurance policy, Rich, is it has a professional services exclusion. So it's not going to pick up any E&O type risk or professional liability medical malpractice. So the first policy that most MSPs probably go to is they get a business insurance policy. The next thing would be a workers' comp policy. If an employee gets hurt on the job, and the health insurance carrier finds out that they were hurt on that job, they're going to deny the claim and kick it over to workers' comp. Workers' comp is health insurance for work-related injuries. People always say, oh, do the carriers pay attention? And I'll just share this quick story. My son now is 16, just had his 16th birthday. But when he was 2, all the kids at the daycare run to the door to see if it's their parents. Well, somebody was picking up. It happened to not be us. But my son left his finger in the hinge and the door shut on it and it broke his finger. So we took Taylor to Children's. We got a call. We had to take him to Children's. My point is, a month later, in my mailbox shows up, in order for United Healthcare to pay the claim, it asked me 7 questions, and they were going to put the claim on hold till I answered it. The very first question was Taylor hurt on the job? He's 2 years old. He wasn't hurt. It's a form letter to kick it over to the workers' comp, right? So the second thing is that workers' comp insurance. Again, the third kind of staple coverage would be that a comprehensive first and third party cyber liability errors and omissions insurance policy. So you got to make sure if you're going to perform, a managed service type, solution to your client, and you're going to be in charge of their networks and their backups, you got to have that comprehensive cyber liability errors and omissions insurance. One thing, if you ask me, there's probably 2 others you want to pay attention to, which would be employment practices liability. So that's there for sexual harassment, wrongful termination, discrimination. Believe it or not, Rich, over the last 3 years, we get more EPLI claims than we do workers' comp. So if you ask me what's more important, start looking. A lot of business insurance policies will let you take out a sublimit of maybe $50,000, right? So if you feel like, hey, I'm a 2-person organization or a 3-person organization, maybe go to your business insurance policy and ask them to endorse the employment practices liability to $50,000 or something, But usually if you want to take a standalone comprehensive policy, they usually start at limits of like $250,000. But again, the carriers will also give you access to sample employee handbooks. They might have a hotline where you could call and say, hey, I'm looking at writing this person up, or I'm letting them go. How many write-ups do I have to have in my particular state? So they've got, some resources that are available. Is pay attention to that APLI. And then the last one would be, a crime insurance policy. A cyber liability policy actually has some crime components in there. If the MSP gets tricked into sending money to someone they shouldn't have, chances are it's going to have some sort of, funds transfer fraud coverage in there if it's well written. But the thing, Rich, it doesn't cover is what happens if your tech steals from your employees? That's a third-party crime exposure. You got to have crime. Or what happens if you get tricked into sending 40 laptops based on a boat? We've had this happen here at Techrug to clients where, client A, their email, was compromised or something, and they'll send an email to the MSP and say, hey, we'd like to take out 2 laptops. We'd like to buy 2 laptops. Boom, they pay for that, right? It's not really the client at this point. It's somebody, it's, identity fraud. It's somebody else that's acting like the client. Then the next order usually is, hey, can we get $40,000 worth of laptops? They go to a vendor like Ingram Micro. They buy 40,000 laptops. They go to charge a credit card. It doesn't work. Boom, now all of a sudden they're on the hook for $40,000 of laptops. That's actually called cyber deception ad property or cyber deception property. That's only covered on a crime policy. It's not covered on a cyber liability policy. So, kind of to summarize, business insurance, workers' comp, cyber liability errors and omissions, employment practices liability, and first and third party crime would be kind of the 5 staples. But out of all of them, crime's probably the last domino we see fall. So maybe stick with the EPLI before the crime.
What about directors and officers coverage? Who is that for? How important is it?
Yeah, I mean, directors and officers is in there if you mismanage the company. If that's what it is. It's errors and omissions for mismanaging the company. So if you decide to make a decision, and let's say that, we've even seen, again, these are rare that they happen for our clients. If you're talking about clients that might have, 20 or 30 or 40, we've got clients like that. They generally will carry the D&O. But if you ask me how many of our $3 million and below clients carry D&O, the answer is none. But it's basically errors and omissions for mismanaging the company. So it could be a decision that causes layoffs. And then you have employees that sue you based on the decision of taking the company down direction or road B instead of road A, and they sue you. Or a vendor. You could make a decision that causes a vendor, hey, I buy $2 million worth of hardware, and all of a sudden the decision that you made causes that vendor not to get their $2 million. That would be a directors and officers. It could be partners that sue you. They have a disagreement, and you've got one partner that owns 50%, another that owns, and they say, hey, based on this, there's some sort of allegation of negligence, and they sue them. That could be a D&O claim. So remember, D&O is really for mismanaging the company. If you have an E&O situation and the client tries to sue you because of some sort of network security failure, the definition of insured is a director, officer, employee. So if it's an E&O claim, even if you're personally named, the E&O policy will pick that up. Does that kind of differentiate it, Rich?
Yep, it does. Yeah. And you just sort of clarified the one thing that I was going to check on. If you're a sole proprietor, is D&O relevant? But I think that kind of clears that up.
Yeah.
But what if you screw up and you decide to sue yourself for the damages? Would your D&O policy cover that?
That's a good question. Owners and stuff, there's exclusions for that. So you're that one, you're self-insuring. You have to go to bed with yourself and talk to yourself at night,
Well, I have a long history of sexually harassing myself too. So, I might want to get one of those EPLI policies for that as well. Just after talking about all these different policies, it seems like there's an opportunity for someone to come along and say, we're going to generate and create the super policy. It's like, the one ring to rule them all. It'll be like the one insurance policy that covers everything from director failure to to the EPLI stuff, to the air fryer, toaster oven in the break room. Like, let's just get all of it in one policy. Why does that policy not exist?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's different types of risks. Like EPLI, for example, very, very high hazard in California. Okay, where I'm at in Ohio, it's relatively inexpensive. So, if you don't properly underwrite and you throw that onto the policy, even if it's at a sub limit of $200,000, there's certain states that are very employee friendly where the EPLI carriers they get their laundry taken to them, and so they're just not, they're not interested in either A, writing EPLI insurance in that particular state, or B, maybe they're only interested, every other state they'll offer $1 million, but on that state, they're only interested in offering, $100,000. So it's just different states might have different type of risk for that type of insurance. And again, a business carrier might look and say, hey, we've really gotten killed on the cyber E&O. Why would we want to include? We don't want to insure that. We can't collect enough money. So that's really the reason why, Matt. But it would be great. I mean, we talked about it for years and years and years to have, and even workers' comp, NCCI, that kind of is the monitoring body of workers' comp nationally. They're so archaic in how they run. If you don't do it their way, they're too big that it's a pain to get done. So there's just a lot of obstacles and hoops that you have to jump through that it's just not worth it.
Wow, very interesting stuff. And now I fear like I'm going to get sued for anything and everything that could possibly ever happen. So I'm going to go start looking at policies. If you have scared the bejesus out of some MSPs out there with this conversation, and I'm sure you have many of them, and they're thinking, holy moly, I am not prepared. I am not thinking about half of this stuff. What is like the first piece of advice that you give to them of like what you need to go do right now?
Yeah, don't get scared. It doesn't have to be that scary of a world, right? I mean, I would ask you, Matt, if you have an MSA and you're using an MSA, if you've got cyber insurance, if you're sharing the terms and conditions of the vendor, if you have a detailed statement of work that you've told them all 40 things that you can do. So what are they going to say? If God forbid vendor A gets a supply chain attack, are they going to say, well, you didn't tell me that you use vendor A? No, we gave you the terms and condition. We told you that the email solution was through them. What are they going to do? You didn't offer me EDR. No, when we sat down in your office, I gave you the 30 things that we do. There were only 5 boxes checked. Of course, I'm not going to look at the other 25. Like, the world doesn't have to be that scary. I mean, we had an event that impacted 2 of our MSPs and 100 of their clients last 4th of July. So with the 100 clients shut down, Matt, how many lawsuits do you think we had?
40.
1.
Oh, I was just taking a guess. I was way off.
But most people are astonished. Why? Because the MSPs did the things the right way. That the opposing counsel's looking. You really want to spend $100,000 to get 25 out of this, or it's a losing battle. It's enough. Attorneys aren't going to take it on if it isn't easy money.
Wow, that is absolutely true, and very, very good point. And unfortunately, we are out of time. But what an amazing discussion and conversation. Lots to think about. Lots to think about. And we've learned that it doesn't have to be a scary world, but we do know that you are at risk for lawsuit from anything and everything known to man. So make sure that you are properly covered. Justin, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Techrug, learn more about what you offer, get help, get advice, where can they go? Where can they find you?
Oh, I appreciate it. Like I said, it's not a promo. I was just doing it to help you guys out. So
no, absolutely no. But absolutely, I'm sure people will have follow-ups, and we want to be able to help them find you wherever you are. So where are you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're in Ohio, and like I said, I can email, Rich my information and stuff. And I don't know if you guys post it up, but honestly, I just came on here to help the community out because, it's something that, I've been through hundreds of lawsuits, and honestly, Matt, I just don't want any MSP listening to have to go through some of the stuff that our clients are go through. So, if my little piece of nugget today can help someone out and it leads to them not getting sued, then I did my job.
Excellent stuff. So folks, go to the show notes for episode 231. If you're on your phone, you can open the description area there. If you're on YouTube, you'll open up the description area there. Also leave a comment and hit the bell and hit the like button and all that stuff. And we'll put all his information in there so you can go find him, hopefully like on LinkedIn and his website and all that kind of stuff. So it's something that we will try to provide for you. And also sound advice when you are getting surgery, check the sheets. Also important stuff. Make sure that those are clean. And with that, we are going to say goodbye to Justin. Thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, hopefully Manuel Palachuk will still be with us on the other side of the break. And we will close out the show and have a little fun. So see everybody then. Thank you. And we are back with part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. Great interview with Justin Reinmuth from Techrug. A lot of interesting stuff. A lot of Rich, we seem to more and more often on this show, we're talking about cyber insurance and risk management, and it's such an important thing and it's such a prevalent thing. Any highlights from that interview you'd like to talk about or mention?
Well, I thank Justin for coming on the show and just sort of, broadening the conversation around risk for MSPs beyond cybercrime related issues, which it's a huge area and it's very important to focus on. But there are all sorts of other dimensions of risk. So I appreciate that. The other thing I appreciate, and this is Justin basically, is he really does, feel like he wants to not feel like he actually does dedicate time to the community, and he doesn't want an appearance like this to feel promotional, so he practically refused to give you his website, and we will have that for you in the show notes, but I'm just going to go ahead for people who show notes to the podcast they listen to. His website is techrug.com, TECHRUG, Techrug, one word, .com, and you can learn a little bit more about his business there and what he offers.
Yeah, and I encourage people to do so.
I was going to say, Matt, obviously I came in at the end of the thing, and you had made a comment about, well, everybody's going to sue you, and it's a scary world out there. And he had said, look, don't be scared, don't get, don't unnecessarily cause yourself anxiety. But I would say, I know he means this as well, but you should have the prudence to do this. Don't underestimate the importance of this. Yes, there are people out there in the world that are going to sue you for anything, but if you've got your stuff in order, you can sleep at night and you don't need to worry about it. But you do have to do your due diligence and know what you don't know. And that sounds like what he's got a lot of is a lot of the stuff that people just don't really know and realize, and you just got to be prudent and you got to do your due diligence.
Yeah, I was picking up on a theme of transparency, right? Like you need to be transparent and you need to be detailed. Like don't hide the terms and conditions of the tools that you use. You need to have those up center. Put it all out there and get it all out in front of them, and leave it to the client to go through it and understand it. But obviously, you encourage them to do so. But if they're not going to do it, at least you're protecting yourself. And transparency.
By the way, the best way to do that has always been, and we've been telling people this as coaches for years. Put it on your website, just like Microsoft does. That way you can send out an email to your client saying, we've updated our terms, conditions, and information, and you need to read this because this is what's changed. And they go to the website. You don't have to have them re-sign a new agreement, right? It's 21st century. Don't do that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, really great interview. If you didn't catch most of that, I encourage you to go back and listen to it or watch it, because it's really, really good stuff, and things that is more important today than ever to start thinking about and to put into good practice. Rich, that leads us here to the part of the show where we try to do something a little fun. We've had Manny on before many times. We've played 5 questions. We've had tech picks with him. We've done all that, but we've got something fun lined up. This is your idea. So Rich, why don't you introduce it?
Well, Manny is coming to us from his boat, which he has lovingly restored. It's almost 100%. Sounds like complete and ready for enjoyment right now. So this is a guy who knows boats and boating. But let's see how well, Matt. Let's test Manny's knowledge of boating and nautical terminology. What do you say?
I love it. Why don't we do, how many do you want to do? 10? So we can give him, we see how many he gets out of 10?
That might be a little much, because we'll probably need a little bit of explanation for what some of these things are. Do you want to do 2?
Yeah, I think we could do 10. Let's see how close we can get to 10.
Okay.
Let's do 10. We're gonna track them.
Yeah.
All right.
Of course,
right
you guys still have to come up with them.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I think some of these will go quick. I don't think they'll go very long. So, Rich, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Okay, Manny, what is a bombora?
A bombora?
Yes, and you are allowed to ask for a spelling.
I feel bad now. I'm like, you guys have Google on your side. I've never even heard of that, and I call BS. That's what I'm going to say right out of the gate. You guys are filling me full of it. That's not a thing. What is that?
I'm on a website that claims to know these kinds of things, and they say that a bombora, B-O-M-B-O-R-A, is a shallow area where waves may break.
Fair enough. Okay.
All right. So we're over 1. Let's see where we go. Well, Rich, you went for the jugular right off.
Yes,
the bat.
like seriously.
Holy moly.
I'm
All
like,
right,
I'm going to be okay. No, I'm going to no.
All right, let's try this one. What is a dunsel? A dunsel.
A dunsel is one of the sails on the forward of the main. There's staysail. A dunsel, I think, is just above it. I couldn't tell you specifically, but on a square rigger, there's a lot of them, and I don't know the exact order and the names.
Ooh, I don't know how to give him credit for that, Rich, because it doesn't line up with what the website says.
What does the website say?
The website says a dunsel basically is a part of a ship that is useless. But maybe there is another dunsel. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting.
Is it spelled the way it sounds? D-U-N-S-A-I-L?
No, not dunsail, dunsel. D-U-N-S-A-L.
Okay, well then there you go. Okay, because quite often when they talk about a mizzen, a mainsail, they'll abbreviate SL. They'll just put sul. So I will say I was grasping, but because it sounded like a sail on a square rigger. So okay, I'll go 0 for 2. That's
okay,
fine.
we'll go over 2, but we might give you half credit. I'm going to look up and see if there is a dun sail. So, Rich, number 3 to you.
So I went for the jugular before. Let's see if this one's maybe a little bit more reasonable. What is a boat's freeboard?
Freeboard is the amount of space from the water line to the top of the gunnel. Is basically how much of it is just freeboard above the water, not including the deck or any of that. So it's should be from the gunnel to the water. And the more of it you have on a sailboat, the more the wind pushes you, whether you have sails up or not. And so on a sailboat, you want really low freeboard. On a motorboat, you don't care. So that's why when you see sailboats that have really sit high up out of the water, it's kind of like a turd with a rudder. It's got a lot of freeboard that the wind pushes against and makes it hard to steer.
Give that man a point.
All right, he's got that one. 1 for 3. Number 4, halyard. What's a halyard?
So a halyard is
H-A-L-Y-A-R-D.
Yeah, you don't need to spell that one. This one's easy. So a halyard is any line that takes your sail up the mast or up the forestay or inner forestay, or basically it's what you haul on to get the sail to go up.
Ding, 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 ding. 2 for 4 so far. Rich, now over to you.
Manny, what is an impeller Impeller.
So an impeller is basically, it's just a usually rubber, like on my motor or many others. There's a raw water pump that pulls raw water out, seawater out, runs it through the motor to cool it. And that little pump is literally just a little brass housing. And the impeller is a rubber gear. And I say rubber, it literally has little fins on it, and it spins around and it runs the water. And the idea is if it pulls something in from the ocean that it shouldn't, that's not, because it's not perfectly clean water, it's not going to mess it up. So it's basically just a rubber gear for the inside of a pump.
Another point for Manny. That's what it is.
Even I knew that one.
Right?
Good. That was probably one of the only ones I've known so far. All right. What is the leeward?
So leeward is not the side the wind is coming on, but it's the other side. So right now I'm facing the wind. Leeward side is behind me. So you're the protected side of it. So if you're on the leeward side of the island, the wind is on the other side coming across the island, and you're on the lee side. They call it the lee side or leeward side. And it's a good place to be. When you're anchoring, it's not a good place to be when you're sail racing.
He's coming back. That's correct. Rich, over to you.
So, Manny, what are transits, which are apparently sometimes referred to as leads, but let's just go with transits.
Okay, so that's a term there's multiple versions of this. So on land, a transit is something that tells you, you can tell, they use it to gauge vertical parallel across a canyon or something. It's literally like a spyglass with a thing on it. In nautical terms, I think a transit is simply an actuator arm that keeps things level. I'm trying to think of the best way what I would consider a transit. I think it's more, I'm curious how they're using that term, because I'm going to say I can't. I think they're talking specifically about something that shouldn't be spoken about that specifically. What do they say to this?
Here's what they say transits are. They are marks used in channels and at bar entrances, which when in line indicate the center of the navigable channel.
So you remember I was saying about finding the distance on land? So in chart number 1 for the US Coast Guard tells you all the symbols and everything for nautical navigation on the water. And you have red and green lights. And when you're in the channel, what they're saying a transit is the marker in the middle of this channel and one farther down that tell you that you're in the center. So yeah, I was thinking as a transit if they were talking about on the boat or on the ship.
So Rich, are you giving them credit or?
No, because a transit on the ship would be basically something like a gangway or, so yeah, I wouldn't, and you don't need to give me points for that.
All right.
That's one I should have known from piloting and navigation.
All right, so we will put that one in the no column.
Three and three,
we're
right?
Four right, 3 wrong. So we're
okay.
4 out of 7. Let's see what we can do. I'm going to see if I can find a tough one. What is a quay? Quay. A quay.
These are weird terms. When they talk about a quay, at the end of the day, there's a quay. It can be as simple as a cement barrier along a jetty where boats can come up to more or tie off at, or people can walk along. It can be that simple, but it's weird because when you look at one, you say, is that the quay or is that the, there's other terms that they use. Is that is it a dock? No, because it's not built from something. It's not protruding from the land. But ideally a quay is the cement walkway and wall that separates the island from the water.
100% correct. Good job. Rich, over to you.
So if I'm not mistaken, this is probably my last one. Is this number 9?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, this is number 9, and I'll come up with number 10.
Okay, so this is appropriate for my last one. Manny, what is a bitter end?
Oh, yeah.
Keeps reaching for one. There it is. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. It's the end of a rope or a chain.
Yeah, basically it's just the end. And sometimes it's not bitter. That's why we wrap it with twine and keep it from being bitter.
Very good. All right, I got one more, number 10. Let's see how we do. What is scuttlebutt?
Well, so the colloquial term scuttlebutt is chatter about things that aren't relevant to what you're supposed to be doing while you're handling a boat. And I don't know if there's another term for it, but scuttlebutt is just the chatter about the boat that's not about what you're supposed to be doing, piloting, navigating, sailing. What do they say?
According to this, they say it is a term that means gossip. And that sounds like what you said.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll give you credit for that. That means you end up a solid C, 70%.
Gosh, I feel so bad because that first one was like a hammer and nail. So I'm going to ask each of you guys one, but you can't use Google. So you got to close Google, right?
All right, I'll close these. I won't look. All right.
And these are really old school terms, but they're important terms when you're sailing.
We're ready. Who do you want to target first? Or
I'm going to go after Rich because he's the one that. Okay, so what does the term Abaft mean? Abaft.
Abaft. Interesting. So I'm hearing aft in there, which might be the back. And there's almost like an echo of back. It's like you're combining back and aft. Abaft means behind you on a boat.
So I'm certainly going to give you. I'm going to give you half points, but here's the deal: if this is your mast, and here's the stern of the boat, and I say I want you to go stand abaft the main mast, you will stand immediately behind the main mast. You are right abaft, after the main mast. Okay, not at the end. I didn't say go. So I can say go to the stern of the boat, go to the bow of the boat, go to the mast, and you'd say where on the mast? To the port, to the starboard, to the forward, aft of it, and I would say abaft, which means right up to it, right behind it. That's it.
At most, Matt, I get a quarter of a point for that.
Yeah. At least I'd give you a full half point, right? So
50% is still failure, Rich. So you failed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I reclaim that other half. So now I'm at 80%. So Matt, a thwart ship.
A thwart ship. See, I hear the word thwart, and I think
That'll get you nowhere.
It's not going to a thwart ship. A thwart ship. Well, it wouldn't be aboard. Maybe it just means you're off the ship, because a board ship would be I'm a board ship. I'm on the ship. A thwart ship might be I am off the ship.
Nope.
They're not even close.
Thwart ship. So right. So port and starboard, and forward and aft, right? And so if you drew a line forward and aft, and if you had a line that transit from the aft to the forward, how would you describe from left to right? Well, we don't say left to right or port to starboard. If we say port to starboard, we're talking about steering. But if I say it's a thwart ship, it means it's a cross from this side to this side. That's all it means. So if I have a bulkhead inside, I go down below and there's a bulkhead that separates the front to the back, it runs a thwart ship this way. That's it. So.
Well, I didn't get even half credit, Rich. I
reclaim that, and now I'm at 9 points.
So now he has magically turned his C into an A.
No.
We'll give it to him. We had the power of scanning web pages for terms that looked like they were hard. So it was already an unfair battle, but I think you did great. You did an awesome job. A lot of fun. And hopefully everybody learned a little bit about nautical terms. But Rich, there's a lot of other things that people need to learn, and ChannelProNetwork.com is where they can go to learn them, but they can also learn about what they missed. What did they miss last week?
Well, you know what? If you've been asking yourself that question, folks, there's a very easy way to solve this. On Fridays, you go to ChannelProNetwork.com and you look for our "In Case You Missed It" post written by our own James Gaskin. This week, we've been talking about security and risk a lot on this show. James is going to have some recent statistics from WatchGuard for you. Get a load of this. Their ransomware detections in Q1, just the first quarter of this year, were twice the volume of ransomware detections in all of 2021. That's how fast ransomware is getting out of control. So there's more where that came from. James will have that for you. Some more interesting evidence James will have for you. There was a report issued by HP about remote workers, and turns out people really still dig printers, even in the age of digital transformation, folks. 57% of remote workers polled said that they missed access to a printer at the office more than they missed access to their colleagues at a happy hour. Other interesting statistics in there. Good in case you missed it to check it out. He's also got an interesting story about you'll just have to get the details from James, but it involves a kangaroo and a parrot who colluded on a jailbreak. Check it out. Now, that's what happened last week. If you're sort of interested in what's coming up next week, not a whole bunch. We're right in the summer vacation season, as we were talking about before, so it's going to be a little bit slow on the news side of things. But there is going to be some partner program news from a vendor I haven't written about in a while, and that's about as much as I'm going to say about that. I'm sure we'll be talking about it on next week's show.
And speaking of next week's show, it's going to be a little bit of a different show next week. And why is that, Rich?
Well, yeah, you're not going to want to miss this one, folks, because Matt's going to be on, speaking of vacation, summer vacation season, Matt's on vacation next week. We will still have an episode of ChannelPro Weekly for you, but I will be filling in for Matt. So if you like old footage of train wrecks or cars going off cliffs, if you're a fan of disaster movies, you don't want to miss the show, because I'm going to be the captain of the ship next week. My guest host, who will also have, I'll be taking him off the edge of the cliff with me, is Eric Long from TerraCloud, and it'll be fun to catch up with him too.
Oh, good. Well, that will be a good show. Eric is always fun to have on, so that'll be awesome stuff. And I will miss everybody next week. There's a chance that that show might go out a little late too. So normally we try to get shows out on Friday. There is a chance it will not go out until that following Monday. It will depend. I'm going to be in an area where I might be looking for something to do in the evening, and if I can get the files from Rich, I might go ahead and slap it together and get it out on time. We will just see, because I'm on vacation. Rich always says when you're on vacation, you don't work, and I'm not very good at that. But we'll see what happens. But it'll be a fun week. It'll be a fun show. Rich will do a great job. It's always good to have Eric Long on. I will be back to see everybody the week after that. Big thanks to Manuel Palachuk for joining us on the show this week. It's always a blast having you on. It's always a lot of fun. You have a lot of great insights. Where can people, if they want to connect with you, if they want to get to know you more, learn more about you, where can they go? How can they find you?
All they got to do is spell my name right. It's manuel@palachuk.com is my email address, and my website is manuelpalachuk.com. And I think social media, any of the social media channels, Insta Spam, Twitter, Facebook, it's just /Manuel Palachuk.
And I will attest, he's very easy to find, and he's absolutely a person you want to get to know and follow, because not only does he do amazing things boating wise, but he also has a lot of really great insights that he posts, and I always make sure to check those out every time he does. I hope you had fun. Thanks for coming on.
I did. I enjoyed it. I look forward to the next time.
Awesome.
Miss you guys at the shows. I haven't seen a single one this year.
Well, hopefully we can change that before the end of the year, because I would love to catch up in person and see you soon. So we will talk about that. Hopefully we can make that happen. Awesome stuff. Well, that's going to wrap up the episode 231. Of course, go to channelpronetwork.com each and every day. Set it as your homepage. There you'll find the latest news, articles, resources, white papers, all kinds of great stuff to help you keep on top of what's going on in the industry and help you make more money, make better business decisions, run your business better, all that stuff. It's all there for you, folks. Make sure you go and check it out each and every day. And of course, subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly podcast, wherever podcasts are found. We're on Google, Yahoo, Stitcher, Yahoo, they probably have a podcast. They all do. We're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, we're on all those. We're also on YouTube. If you like to watch, hit the bell, hit the subscribe button. Like I said, press all the buttons, and things will happen. You'll have all those there. And leave a comment, send us an email, podcast@channelpronetwork.com if you want to get in touch with us. And of course, with that, you'll see Rich and Eric next week. I'll see you in a couple weeks. And until then, take care.